Hi class, welcome to Module 12 of ICM 522 Social Media. This week we're going to cover content marketing. We'll take a look at the importance of content marketing and developing a strategy, and we'll take a look at how a couple of companies and brands have really used content marketing to connect with their consumers and to engage them across social media platforms. And I hope that you can take away some tactics that you can use against your community. So let's get started. Here's a brief overview of this week's lecture. We're going to define what content marketing means and how brands are using content marketing to start creating content, the curation of content, and the distribution of content through different social media platforms. So we can see how different brands are leveraging social platforms to really build brand awareness, and we see how brand awareness turns into brand evangelism throughout the community, and we'll see some user interaction and participation. And I'm also going to feature a couple of smart brand content marketing campaigns through some examples of Whole Foods, Kraft, and T-Mobile. And hopefully, that will start encouraging you guys to look at your communities and what you could build creatively for your content marketing strategy. And planning is, really content marketing requires some planning, and really we get down to scheduling, right? So we have some calendars, different types of calendars that you can use to really lay out your plan. And, we'll definitely get into the nuts and bolts of this week's assignment. First, I just want to review a couple of elements that we have through our course. And definitely, most of you, in fact, all of you have created communities across the different social platforms. So remember, we started with a blog, we added a Facebook page, we added a Twitter account, and then last week I encouraged you to try another social media platform like Pinterest, Google+, YouTube, or LinkedIn, whatever would fit for your community. And I really want to encourage you to keep posting and to keep building, right? So this is, now we're in the phase of actually building out your social campaigns and your social branding. So I know a lot of you had emailed in terms of, okay, Professor Hong, I've created these accounts, now what? Now we're in the stage of now what? And this lecture is going to cover that. So content marketing is important for different brands and different communities and across the platforms, because you're trying to send your message out there. So hopefully, we have gone over this in the last few lectures, where I really encourage you to start blogging and posting any relevant information that you find against your community. And I've seen that, definitely. So, in terms of, again, looking at the few weeks in the past where we covered theory, now we're into application. But we still want to go back to our reading. So, one thing that I want to really emphasize on is the readings are supposed to really support your understanding of community building and how social media is a tool and really a space for collaboration and communication. And when we look at content marketing, we want to really grow that collaboration, because really through it all, it is content curation, right? And distribution across the different social platforms that you choose. So, we're going to really cover, how it's important to make sure that you plan ahead, whether it be through a calendar, maybe it's an editorial calendar or a marketing calendar. Some of you are already, familiar with these type of calendars or budget plans within your own profession. And then in terms of discovery, we find that content is very crucial for search in the social world as well as across the web. And, you really find that however relevant you are to any topics that might be trending to the community at large, you just want to get there, be out there, and be discovered. And engaging your audience, this is your way in terms of really, okay, you found a community that you're interested in. How do you contribute to that? How do you really start engaging your followers and build followers, right? Because, really, just because you create, these certain platforms for your community doesn't necessarily mean that, it can be easily discovered. You want to give it some value to your community to make it shareable and to really connect, right? And again, we're going over the strategy as it goes to your post method. And, definitely you want to think about the people. That's your community, your audience, your objective. What are your goals, right? And your strategy. How are you going to really make your goals, relevant and happen? And technology. What are you using for the platforms against your community and available to your community? Secondly, in terms of your reading, here I have, I'm not sure if you can see this, but the new rules of marketing. I have a couple of chapters in here that will kind of give you a little bit more in terms of the nuts and bolts of how you can use different tactics for your content strategy. Same thing with this book that's a recommended reading. I know, there's a lot of recommended readings. I know a lot of you had some good feedback on Cognitive Surplus and Content Nation, but this woman, I'm trying to get her to see if she can have a hangout session with us. But Leanna Evans really succinctly defines in short chapters what you should do in terms of tactics against your community. So in terms of community and brand building, she's not saying you're not inundating, your audience and your community to just sign up for the sake of signing up. She says, you really get what you give. How are you connecting? Are you really monitoring? Are you paying attention? And she's, really using some real life tactics that you could really use to support how you look at your community and how to connect with them. Again, this is just a great step for everyone to realize that here, what does it mean now that you've created these different platforms for your community? How do you start engaging them, and how do you see, the really first crops of your labor, right? So in terms of content marketing, a quick definition here is the creation and sharing of content that appeals and attracts, your readers and your consumers. In the end, the marketing strategy and techniques for a lot of companies and brands is to distribute the relevant content so that the value is seen by the consumer and the audience, and they will in turn reciprocate. And that reciprocation might be, buying a product or really spreading the word of a launch or an initiative. And, that's the takeaways in terms of seeing, again, the crops of your labor. And it really takes an understanding of the audience and what makes them tick. Remember, as you're looking at your community, you're also monitoring not only trends, but who are the connectors, who are the creators. Now that you're a creator, how do you really, gauge and find things that are relevant and keep the ball rolling, right? And somehow you want to get your message out there, and you want to create this spreadability, this stickiness, even to the point of, what is something that you're going to put out there, really engage and draw your audience and perhaps become viral to your community. So in terms of how we look at content marketing strategy for different companies, now we see that companies really use content, in terms of threefold: creation, curation, and distribution. And what it does is it builds brand awareness, and it really starts putting down the fundamentals and the groundwork for brand evangelism. And not so much as, there's an equal partnership. There's not so much as always the company and the brand and the marketing efforts to really put in a lot of money and an effort to, really get that brand, awareness out there. But they see that there's a partnership with their consumers to help with that evangelism, because, as many of you have even expressed in your own social network, you really find value when it comes to referrals from the people that you know, right? Word of mouth. Or, maybe there's someone in your network that really understands a certain product or idea, or that's the go-to person. And if they can validate, why, you're, interested in a product, or why you should lean a certain way or express a certain opinion or validate your opinion, that gets you going and that gets you connected, right? So how companies look at content marketing is creation to make sure that there's originality and something always relevant of topic to connect with their community. Curation, right? Coming up with different ways, and this is where social media comes in, different platforms to connect to their consumers, and content distribution. Distributing the content across the different platforms and making sure that there's shareability across those different types of content that they're distributing. So, brands and companies, as well as yourself with your community, you're trying to figure out, how do you get your message out there? How do you engage your customers? And how can you take advantage of digital media and different social platforms, right, to get your message out there? And it's very efficient. It's low cost, and it's really changed. Throughout the years, we see a whole change in dynamics in terms of, what brands use and the different platforms, in terms of also what type of content that they put on these different platforms. So meaning, you might see, like, for instance, traditional platforms like TV and radio, you have a very certain limit and time frame for a commercial spot, right? Maybe it's just 30 seconds at most, right? And then you see in online and through the internet, so if you have a YouTube video, you can actually stretch that out. You're not limited to a certain time anymore. You can kind of tell a story, and it can be in a longer frame, a longer feature of a commercial. So we see that, digital platforms and social platforms seem to give a little bit of an edge and effectiveness in terms of, advertising. So, when we look at the reality of consumer engagement, right, the reality is, and you see this through the past couple of weeks, because I know a couple of you have emailed me in terms of, okay, I did this, and then what? The and then what is really your strategy, again, going back to the post method, and then now to this content marketing strategy. So now you see that if you build it, they won't necessarily automatically come, right? So you built a Facebook page, you built your Pinterest page, you built your Twitter. Now how do you gain and grow followers? So this is where you start having to, really go out there and, connect with the community across different groups, across, different social media venues, maybe different message boards or sites, and, really also tap into your own personal network to see who's interested in your community. And now here I have a couple of different points here in terms of why communities need to find an interest and how you can start growing off of the platforms that you've built. So community interests, they want to know, how can they network? Is it a network? Is there a value in terms of building a network for that community? So, definitely, if you throw a party and you don't send invitations, no one's going to come to your party, correct? So now in terms of value, a lot of times we see in terms of marketing and consumership, there's a certain value that you need to get in the community for you to want to be part of that community. And we see this, really validated through our readings, but also, you see that in terms of your platforms too. And the value can be a number of things. Is it information? Is it, coupons, discounts? Is it knowing a couple of events around a certain theme? What is it that is valuable to your audience and your community, and what are they going to get from it? Relevance. Is it relevant now? And, in terms of relevancy, we find that, sometimes, it's more in terms of, remember the whole attitude of spectators versus critics and collaborators, right? So for spectators, they may sign on, maybe it's a one-time thing, but they come back to see if there's anything new, any freshness or relevancy. You keep coming back because you find something relevant. And this is where we see, for instance, a platform like Twitter really boom and grow because they put, real-time content or, real content from, consumers or, different terms of engagement, like people on the ground at a certain event sharing, their perspective, photos, images, videos, or tweets about a certain event that's happening, right? So we want to see, okay, what's the latest? Participation, right? That kind of lends itself into participating, what makes you want to, really engage into a community blog or a community Twitter page or Facebook page. And remember, there's self-publishing here. So for as much as like you as the curator and the creator are putting out content, you want to encourage participation from your audience to start engaging in that information and putting their opinions and their thoughts out there as well. And this only helps in terms of sharing and spreading that message. And again, you see it across different platforms and across different content. So I really want to encourage you guys to see how content really changes too. And there's different folds of content. It's not enough just to put a post and just say, okay, it's just words and people are sharing words. People are sharing different aspects of multimedia, and different social platforms are paying attention to that. So remember last week I also mentioned that Twitter is now trying to incorporate rich media into their limit of 140 characters. How are they doing that? They're paying attention, right? Same thing with Facebook. They're constantly updating. Or, the boom of Pinterest, pin boards and scrapbooking. That's just another way of visually, interacting with the usership. And then in terms of access and time. And this is where I'm going to show you in terms of how content marketing, you make use of access and time. And if you monitor your audience, you'll really get to that. So in terms of, really usage and time, I just want to show a graph in terms of content marketing usage, and it goes over digital platforms as well as traditional media. And you see that now with the digital age, social media is really, really gaining as a technique to really, put behind this content marketing strategy. And in the next couple of slides, I'm going to showcase a couple of brands that are really doing this very well, and some that you might be familiar with. So just keep that in mind. You can see that, in terms of social media, the usage just really increases because probably because, again, the ease of the internet versus really like the latency of, let's say, newspaper, magazine, print, or even radio and TV spots. So that's occasional. But in terms of the digital age, you see social media, you see blog postings, you see, email newsletters, all kind of incorporated within content marketing strategies. So before I jump into a couple of brands and their content marketing strategies, I just want to share this infographic that I'll have it available on Blackboard. But it's a fun graphic about the anatomy of content marketing. And really, it covers everything that we've, kind of went through in the last couple of modules, such as, thought leadership, you see blogs and relevance and different types of platforms, right? And in terms of how you can increase visibility. And, basically, they're saying that the heart of really connecting with your community is to provide quality content, right, that they can use and find, again, value for. And you find that you have a wider reach when you have quality content and compelling content that drives the collaboration as well as spreading the message, across the different platforms and within your community, right? So here, you have also in terms of, not only, again, brand awareness and evangelism, but you see that social space such as Twitter, people really putting out, or saying that the brands that they like, or even if they don't like, it can really do damage, as you can see in terms of if someone has a bad customer experience or user experience with a certain brand and they tweet that out there. So definitely, obviously it's a double-edged sword, but, in terms of getting more content and positive content and, hopefully the brands that are trying to combat any negative feedback is, monitoring their consumer base and their customer base and really coming up with a way of how do we make their experience better. So this is, infographic, one of many that is about content marketing, and definitely I encourage you to take a look at this. One brand that does an excellent job with content marketing is Kraft Foods. Kraft Foods really connects with its community and consumer base. They utilize multiple social platforms as well as, everything in connecting their consumers online and even in terms of traditional media as well. So I have an article available on Blackboard about the thinking behind Kraft Foods content strategy through their Director of Media and Consumer Engagement, Julie Fleischer. And Julie Fleischer recently won the 2013, I believe, Content Marketing Award for a brand. And, really, I just want to give you guys a quick overview in terms of the different platforms that Kraft uses to connect with its community. And you'll find some, takeaways that you can use with your community as well. So here we have, Kraft's homepage, and you see next to the Kraft logo that there's several social media platforms that they use. And then throughout the homepage, this is their recipe page, they have content tailored to different daily picks for their recipes of the day, anything in terms of the spotlight that might be seasonal. And then you see this section called Kraft Tastemakers. Now, Kraft Tastemakers is a blog that they have from, different contributors, different moms that use Kraft products. And I just want to show what the Tastemakers page looks like. And you'll see that, these are women who talk about recipes and they have different stories that they share. So here's another way that, Kraft is utilizing, original content. So if you go into this example of the contributor, you'll find, who she is, the recent post that she has, it's about a soup, and, she's sharing her personal story as well as the recipe. This is the pumpkin apple cider soup. But, you see that it really lends itself well to, again, the community, to engaging the community. And this is, again, user-generated content that Kraft is utilizing. Another area, you see Kraft's Facebook page. And here, you have, recent posts, if not daily, consistent, regular posts about different, ideas. So here's, the recent post on game day dipping recipes or dips and stuff, seasonal recipes, as well as different ideas. And so if you're connected to Kraft on Facebook, you have certain takeaways. Or if you're interested in the Kraft food community, you can go to Facebook and feel connected and somehow, get yourself, I guess, referred to their homepage that has the recipes, right? So, this is just, again, where they use Facebook as a really good platform to engage their audience. And then here you have craft YouTube channel. They have a craft cooking school channel that's dedicated to short vignettes, different like, cooking tips, as well as 30-second spots, commercial spots that you might see on TV, and they're bringing it to you on YouTube as well. They have different channels for their different products as well. And then here we have Craft's Pinterest. And Pinterest is great because it goes to their marketing calendar of what's seasonal, right? So with the holidays coming up, you see just different varieties and different recipes and different preparation that they can use, as something seasonal. And this also relates back to your content marketing calendar, right? So definitely knowing your audience and creating that calendar keeps you kind of on the pulse of, okay, these are the things that I want to relay out to my community. And here on Twitter, they do the same thing. There's, different posts that they have, different sweepstakes that they have. Some of the sweepstakes are for back to school offerings, or anything that's related to kids, because they know that most of their demographics are parents, or moms that are trying to get their kids ready for school or figure out what to make for them when they come back from school. And this again is a way that Craft really connects with its community, and using the different platforms, using the different ways to connect, really kind of brings them a way to show not only brand awareness, but now there's brand evangelism, because as a mom or as a recipe person, you might want to share all these things that you find to your friends. Here, even like Craft, again, back to the content marketing strategy or the scheduling, there's National Pasta Day, and they have a quick recipe that they provide for you. It's a recipe for two. And again, another sweepstakes or a chance for moms. And where, again, I repeat, where Craft does a very good job in terms of utilizing the different platforms is to bring that brand awareness to its product off of the multiple ways of blogs, social media, quick pins, everything that might seem, I guess there's longevity in terms of the recipes and the archives that they have, but there's also the short-term tidbits of how you might connect through Craft through Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest. And they're utilizing their calendar for seasonal events, especially making use of the upcoming holidays and prepping for those type of events for that person that's looking for that perfect cake or perfect meal. And then brand evangelism. If you have a great experience on Craft, they want you to share that experience and really like engage their consumers for that experience as well. Now, remember how I mentioned in a past module about crowdsourcing and how social media is another platform for crowdsourcing, and that's really getting content not only across the different platform, but really gaining content from experts and mavens within the field. And you see a lot of companies and brands also looking into crowdsourcing as a way to develop content and a way to engage with their consumers and audience. So, here's a quick overview in terms of how crowdsourcing works, right? And how, you might use crowdsourcing in a company to figure out a problem or an issue. And remember that I had gone over how Sam Adams had used this, crowdsourcing as a marketing tactic to come up with a user-generated craft beer of a sort on their Facebook page. And, you can see now, here's another strategy in terms of implementing social media to get that effect and get that, idea out there. So, just clever campaigns and ways to use social media and how you aggregate that data and that engagement from users. And this is something that you should keep in mind for your final project and really think about in your community. How do they connect, and what are some ways that you can start engaging and interacting with your community? Maybe it's just, questions or polls that you put up on your Facebook page. Or maybe you can start a Twitter conversation using a certain hashtag. You can, kind of set a tone and a pace and just say, okay, for anyone that's out there that's interested in this, we'd love to hear your opinion. And then, you create this hashtag or you pose this question out on your blog and your Facebook page. Or, maybe it's something where you ask people to kind of share, your pin board, and also, you have a relevant theme that is, hits home to your community. This is another aspect of how crowdsourcing really helps in terms of content strategy, and something that you should definitely consider. Some of you might have seen this T-Mobile campaign. It's called Catch Jeremy, and it's a very clever campaign where it incorporates not only the traditional medium of TV, but you can go online and you can play and kind of follow Jeremy, right? So it's kind of like Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, similar to Where's Jeremy. The TV ad shows his parents complaining about how his mobile bill is just, and the data usage is just really, getting really expensive, and they're saying, hey, close some apps, Jeremy, which is really funny, but it's very clever where T-Mobile, this is, they're a content marketing strategy where it engages, the T-Mobile user to, help them find Jeremy, help the parents spot Jeremy, and in the end, you could win a trip around the world. So this is just, one example of, again, a content marketing strategy where you pull together the different mediums and you engage the consumers. And I would like to, really encourage you guys to, take a look and explore this campaign. But, you see on the left, there's an image of Jeremy, where is he? I guess in Berlin. And then at the top right, you'll see that his data debt is just, phenomenal. And, basically, you're playing a game, online. You're playing also, you can access this through the app as well. So, this is just, again, a really clever campaign that draws and entices and engages the audience. So remember in the last module, I had given an example of a Whole Foods Pinterest board when we were covering social platforms outside of Facebook and Twitter and other up-and-coming independent social media platforms. So here with Pinterest and Whole Foods, you see that there's different stories that Whole Foods is trying to tell through its Pinterest board, right? So you have everything in terms of food, food culture, sustainability, and anything that might be seasonal, even in terms of gift ideas. And this is for them a way to reach out to their community, right? And a way that Whole Foods does another great job in terms of their content creation and content marketing is they actually have a blog, a Whole Foods blog called Whole Story. And this is a way that they're constantly putting out original content to connect to their community. And you can go ahead and see some of their recent posts and how it relates. And it could be everything in terms of like I said, topics in terms of latest recipes. This is about beer, brewing your own beer, and then different ways of healthy eating, their mission, their products, sustainability, GMOs, quick facts, what, when, and why. And they are relaying this information to their, community. And again, this just adds on in terms of what we might see brands doing, not only in terms of here's our brand, see us, this is what we're out there doing in terms of brand awareness, but this brings in everything that we've talked about and we've covered up to this module in creating a community and connecting with your community, right? Your network, as well as, what is it that you're publishing out there? How are you providing value to your audience? And, what are some of the topics of interest? Are you monitoring what's interesting to them? So, I think companies and brands are really identifying that through their calendar, their editorial calendar, their content marketing calendar, and seeing, okay, what are some really creative ways that we can, put out some original content and just start creating conversations. And what we'll do is we'll have our brand, our product as a base for that conversation. When it comes to content marketing calendars, some of you are probably familiar with these type of calendars at your jobs. So maybe some of you are familiar with budget plans or editorial calendars or marketing calendars. And these are ways that you can plan ahead for your consumers and your audience. And here's an example of a sports digital marketing calendar. And you see the events on the left, campaign run dates, and properties to promote during that time. So for instance, when you have the Super Bowl, you have a short campaign run between January and February, and you have to figure out how are you going to be discovered. Is it through search? Are you going to put video out there? Are you going to really promote this event or campaign on Facebook? Are you scheduled to run in-house ads? How about consumer participation and promotion? Is there going to be an engagement or sweepstakes or something of the sort that really has you connected with your consumers or your audience and your community to help propel that theme or marketing idea around the Super Bowl? And we see a lot of different examples in our past lectures. For instance, when we talked about viral video, the Super Bowl favorite of the kid Darth Vader, and even in terms of Oreo really making use out of the Super Bowl dunking in the dark situation. And you see how there's a crossover to these social media platforms to really sustain your strategy. Another example of a calendar, because calendars can really be displayed or written different ways. Here's a roadmap from 2013 to 2014, and it's an overview in terms of a seasonal calendar. You have your holidays, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, that always happen every year. And then just year or annual events such as, again, the Super Bowl or Oscars and entertainment coverage, the Sundance Film Festival, to election coverage. It really depends on what hits home to your community. And below are different marketing plans or digital plans to get your website out there, blogs, Facebook, Twitter, campaigns, YouTube, video, and how you can schedule posts across these social platforms. So again, I'm just going to flip back up to, this digital calendar and this roadmap. And also I'm going to provide for the class a content calendar that you can use. And this is a Word doc, but here's another example of a content calendar layout where you have the weeks coming up, the theme that would be relevant to your community, certain events that you'd like to see happen. Now, this is all going to be across your different platforms. the topic, the media type, which platform that you're using. So let this content calendar be your way of really developing a strategy for your social campaigns for your community. And this is very important, I think, in terms of really helping with strategy. It also is a great record and way for you to kind of put against different marketing tactics, different analytics, and just for you to really see that there's structure when it comes to content marketing as it relates to social media. It's not, again, as I said before, it's not a situation of if you build it, they will automatically come. You're really driving different ways to engage your community and have them relate to the different events and themes that you're posting and putting out there. So for Module 12's content strategy assignment, it's 2 parts. The first part is actual content curation, and the second one is focusing on a content calendar. And before I get into the assignment, I just want to remind everyone 2 things. One is keep posting on a daily basis. I know it seems overwhelming, but I'd like to see some effort. So whether it be the blog, Facebook, Twitter, and your other social platform, what would be great is if you could post across all of those platforms or relate, each of those platforms to each other. So for instance, if you have a blog, then, that should be easy enough for you to create a Facebook post or a tweet about that blog. Or maybe, you've added, for instance, a new category to your Pinterest board. Then you want to also relay that over to your blog and link over to Pinterest, or, you want to say and share that on your Facebook page. But definitely, now we're underway in terms of you wanting to not only gain followers, but you want to start putting that content for that community out there. Secondly, I really want to encourage you to look at Lee Odin's slide presentation about content marketing. And it's an exceptional presentation where it covers tactics, and it also covers, where you might see the results and the discovery of, smart content marketing campaigns and strategies. So let that, kind of let that sink in. It's a big slide presentation, and I hadn't incorporated it in the lecture just because it's a lot. But I think it would be well worth your time. It is a must that you should view this slide presentation and really take some points out of it. And hopefully you can also see in the future where your connection with your community and all these platforms that we're making you sign up for will start molding together and really coming to fruition, right? So let's get into the assignment now. The first part of the assignment is content curation. In terms of your reading that we went over in your reading assignment module, and then also what we went over in the slide, I would like you to create a blog post that demonstrates some kind of curation or theme of some kind that is relevant to your community. And what's really easy is, if you do kind of a list format, like 5 great things about a certain theme or topic that would relate to your community, or 5 great, videos to watch, or 10 tips for such and such. I mean, this is just really minimal in terms of examples of a blog post that you can create and put out there. And what you want to do is, I want to see that this blog post, make sure that it is well worth your time. I would recommend definitely having at least 300 words around your blog. And make sure you have an opening paragraph about the overall theme and why it connects to your community and it's important to your community. And you want to take points out of what you wrote and translate that into social media messages, right? So for instance, let's say if you do 5 great elements of a theme for your community. Maybe each element is a blog post, not a blog post, but a Facebook post or a tweet, or, a little quip that you can put on, LinkedIn or Google Plus, or even like maybe there's a good photo or visual that you can put out on Vimeo or Instagram, against your other independent platform, right? So, let your blog posts not just, take elements from that blog post that you can relate into your messages, and you want to publicize that across your social platforms. The second part of the assignment is the content marketing calendar in itself. And remember the Word document that I had shown, and I will just bring it up again, where you're going to really take this content calendar and fill it out. So with the upcoming weeks, you want to start really, really building around your community, build those posts, start putting up themes that are relevant, events that are relevant. Don't get stuck in terms of what these columns say. You want to change them according to your community. And I'd like you to email this to me, as well as post it up on the Blackboard through the wiki, and make it available to your classmates so they can see where you're kind of going with your content strategy for your community, right? And this will also help in terms of, your final project. And remember, we're building towards that, right? So, next week, maybe you might think, okay, Thanksgiving's coming up, and I think this is something that's relevant to my community. You want to, create maybe a holiday theme, or maybe there's a certain event that you might be hosting or that you might be going to that you want to share. And make sure that, you post during that week, everything that you can around this certain theme or subject, right? And here is just outline in terms of what we're looking for is a monthly theme, right, throughout the month, events occurring within that time period, the topics and the subject of your posts and your conversations. Remember, it's all about collaboration and really finding and giving your community value. Media type, is it, that you're only going to be putting text out there, or are you going to offer some visuals? Are there some video? And in terms of like the social media platform that you really want to emphasize as the lead for that week's strategy. Again, you want to also reference, your post research and experience in your reading when you post this calendar to Blackboard and you email it to me. I'd like to see that, and it would be good for you to kind of give that reference so that your classmates can see it as well. I'm just flipping back to part 1 here, just so that you can take a look again. Again, this is all available on Blackboard. But, starting next week, or the rest of the modules, we are building towards your final projects, and we're going to take a closer look at some of, the communities that you've built. I've actually, tried to like as many of the Facebook pages that I can, and I follow you guys on Twitter as well. So, I'm pretty excited in what I'm already seeing, and I really encourage you to really kind of expand on your followers so that you can really start building up on the analytics. But, just start thinking creatively and have fun with your community. All of you have such great communities, Ken with his kicks, Keith, you have such a, poignant one in terms of football season, as it's happening now. Stephanie and Krista, you have, that the whole web never forgets, it's pretty serious. And then, Dana, you have Downton Abbey. I can keep going. Angela with her gluten-free. These are just such great topics. Jessica and Emily with your sorority, and, that's probably really, kind of really happening now with a lot of the holiday stuff. And I just really want to, again, encourage you guys to really find what's relevant, what's seasonal, and bring that to surface, right? Anyhow, if you have any questions, I can be available through email, and I am very excited to see your content marketing strategy plan as well as your calendar and how you'll be building your community going forward. Thanks.